Welcome back. Today we do some floor pan removal. We're real Flintstones now. Prep the new area in the rear to receive the new floor pan and do some additional discovery because it never ends. Okay, I've gone and made a mess. I went ahead and removed the rear axle. I brought it out with the leaf springs attached. That was easier than a lot of people will have. Easier time than a lot of people will have removing the leaf springs, simply because I know that I did it not long before I parked it for more than half a decade. So the first time I removed those leaf springs, it was a beast of a job. The sleeve was frozen in, which is a common problem. I had to cut them out. No problems this time, just a little bit of torque on them and they came right out. Had to wiggle it out of there to get it all out, but not a big deal. It's currently sitting on 3 wheel dollies and it keeps falling off, and I'm excited about that. Hopefully I don't damage my drums. I'll find a better solution for that, hopefully. And that should give me good access underneath to be able to evaluate all of this floor. Okay, I'm underneath the rear of the car. Rear axle goes right here. You can see here's the brand new stainless steel gas tank, an old wasp nest. So yeah, we're doing great. I have looked at this before and I had deemed that this is all surface rust and non-critical. So I'm not worried about here on back. Everything looks good. There are a few spots where it looks like someone jacked up on here. I'm going to look a little more carefully. I know that they do sell these replacement rear rails, but honestly, that's all solid, just bent. So we'll see. We'll play that one by ear. One of the reasons why I originally wasn't looking at, this is going to be hard to see and I apologize because it's all painted black. I wasn't looking at a new floor, a full floor, is all of this was pretty solid. And you can see moving up, of course I repainted it, so it looks wonderful, but I'm still gonna dig in and see my paint. Ew, well that's disgusting. Looks like whatever undercoating I had on here is kind of goopy. That's exciting. We'll see. I'm still evaluating. We'll play it all by ear, but I mean, it looks pretty nice under here, if I'm being brutally honest. So I do know that I had a problem at my frame rails. I remember I was torquing the bolts back in after replacing my leaf springs, and I wasn't able to get the torque to my torque wrench to click. It just kept spinning and spinning, and I realized that I was sucking in the head of the bolt was starting to suck into the frame rail. So because I needed to get back on there for storage, I just cut a steel plate, and you can kind of see the outline of the, I think it's 1/4 inch steel. It's overkill. It's what I had on hand. Just cut it out, drilled a hole in it, and used it as a massive washer. I'm probably, once I have more access and lift this car up a little bit more, I'm probably gonna just look in here and see if I need to do a little more surgery on this side and the other, just to make sure that I don't have a bigger problem going on. Okay, I am back at it. Before I commit to putting in the individual pans, I'm still on the fence about, excuse me, a full floor or just kind of sectioning in the 2 halves. Talking with a lot of folks who've done this way more than I have. I'd say 9 out of 10 folks are leaning towards full floor. We will see, but let me just kind of show you what I plan to do. This is right by the passenger side torque box. I haven't ground away any of these welds, and you can see, now maybe you can see, this is just lifting up. So that kind of doesn't bode well for corrosion underneath here. That's clean upable and weld toable. That's a new word I just made. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm going to just see if I can do a little exploratory surgery, see what underneath here lifts up, and if I can get a good feel for what I'm working with. So I'll start off with a wire wheel and just kind of clean up in some of this undercoating that they put over everything, and see if there's anything hidden underneath there. So I do want to get a peek inside these rear frame rails. I think that between the pitting I've got and wanting to do any repairs I need to in these frame rails, I think I am just going to go ahead and pull the trigger and go full floor. It kind of, I can do it without, but I think at this point it's just going to be much easier and less time consuming. Okay, well, we did it. We broke down. Here's the new floor pan. Yeah, it is Scott Drake, or at least Scott Drake labeled. It has no markings indicating where it's from, so who knows where they sourced it from. But it looks like a decent stamping. Again, I'm not super critical on getting every crease perfect, as long as it's intact, in good shape, good steel. There were a few spots on the edges. At first I was a little concerned. You can kind of see there's a little upturn there. That happened from shipment, and a little crease right there that I'm not thrilled about, but honestly it's going to be easier just to fix it than to go through the hassle of, you know, making a fuss trying to get a new one out here. Yeah, so this actually came with uppers for the rear torque boxes, which I may or may not use depending on what mine look like, and seat pans with the reinforcement. So excellent. Now I have extra seat pans that I didn't need, but oh well, it's fine. I looked at a few vendors for this. I looked at Summit. I looked at CJ Pony Parts, which is usually my go-to. And it turns out the best deal, once you factor in shipping and everything, came from Jegs. So maybe that if I had paid more for shipping, it wouldn't have these dents in it, but oh well, here we are. Yeah, I do want to talk briefly about the support I have on the car right now. I have the engine out of the car, and I dropped the rear suspension just so I wouldn't have any torque on the back end. Because I'm removing the floor pan, it's not going to be super structurally critical, but I did want to just reduce any potential warpage. So I have on the rockers at the pinch weld support and support, and then on both sides a support underneath the front torque box and rear frame rail. That black jack stand might be a little tough to see, but it's there. So I've got support on both sides, both on the rocker and on the front and rear frame. So hopefully that reduces the amount of twisting or any other deformities that occur in this process. Before I weld everything in, I'm going to go around and recheck level at a bunch of points and just make sure that I don't induce a twist in the body. As you may have seen in previous videos, we've got the new cowl firewall and torque boxes, so that gets the front end pretty nice and tight, but I want to make sure that the entire body itself doesn't move around. You know, sometimes you catch something on video and you go, oh man, that was actually a good example of that, and I'm glad I caught it. In this case, me trying to wrestle this floor pan in by myself through the door hole, it wasn't pretty. In hindsight, I probably should have tried going through the floor itself. I think all I have to do is remove one jack stand and it should, I think, slip out of there. So I'm going to try to do that next time because, yeah, it's not a one-person job trying to manipulate this. I've dropped the floor pan in place just to see how it how it looks and how it lines up. There's, you know, obviously some gaps here. It still needs to, you know, get pulled flat. There's, probably won't be able to see on video, but it still doesn't match the shape. So it should, once everything's pressed down in place, it should level out and line up pretty well. So the rear torque boxes, I'm on the fence about them, so we'll see. Once I drop this pan back out, I'll dig in a little more and get a good look. The top side looks pretty good. It's welded pretty tight on 3 of the sides. I don't know if you can see there, up against the rocker, it seems like it's pulled away. So I'm pretty sure someone's been in here before and worked in this area. I know for a fact because a lot of this is, you know, the blob welder strikes again, and it doesn't appear to be factory. But depending on the shape of this, I mean, it's all solid metal. I saw only surface rust, so I'm gonna clean it up and see if I keep it or if I bother cutting it out. The floor pan came with new upper torque boxes, so if I need to replace them or feel like they have issues, I've got a replacement already in hand. Okay, newfound respect for anyone who's moved one of these in and out before. When I test fitted in, I went through the door hole, and that was a project. This time I dropped it out the bottom. That was easier, but a little more effort and a little less brute force. So it's probably best to, I don't know. I'm from now on going to try to go in and out the bottom. I'm going to have to fit this back up at least one more time, and I'm going to try to make it only one more time. I'm going to have to put it up, mark where everything goes for the weld holes, like the floor supports, and then drop it back out and prep everything for welding and get my brackets back in and everything ready to go in. So yeah, if you're going to do this, I recommend being a little strategic on your jack stands and supports. I like these RV jack stands just because you can adjust them to whatever height you need to. And if you need to move one out of the way, you can really easily back off, you know, a turn and a half or count the number of turns, move it out of the way, move the floor pan out, and then put it back to exactly the same height. Okay, so here is the passenger side rear torque box. Yeah, as I said, it's not in bad shape. The only thing that gives me pause is, I don't know if this is because someone replaced it in the past or what, but we've got a nice gap in between here, which means it's not actually connected to the rocker panel there. So I'm kind of at a loss. I don't know if I drill a couple of holes here and here, bang it up against here and then weld it in place. I might end up doing that. The only thing that makes me hesitate, I might try to look in there, is if there's corrosion on the inside of this. It's a box, so you can't see in without cutting it open. If I can get a peek in there and see what it looks like, I might go ahead and do that and just kind of prep the outside, make sure everything's tidy, and then move on with life. But like I said, I've got replacements. On the other side, this side actually, driver's side, looks a little better. Similarly, yeah, I don't know what they did back here, but if I need to, that's easy enough to use my spot weld cutter, drill out a couple of holes without going through, and then weld it back up. That might be what I do. We'll see. Okay, and here's the other reason why I really wanted to get this part of the floor back out. So back when I replaced the leaf springs, In the book, it says 90 foot-pounds of torque on these rear leaf springs. So I was diligently, I had my torque wrench on one side of it and a socket on the other just to keep it from turning. And I'm sitting there cranking and cranking, wondering why I'm not getting 90 foot-pounds of torque. Turns out the bolt head was sucking into the rear frame rail here. Obviously not ideal. Let me show you on the inside. It does have, I think it's called a crush tube right here, that clearly didn't do its job, or maybe it was not wide enough, because it definitely sucked in. So what I'm gonna do is see if I can, I don't know if this is welded in place or just pressed in. So I'm gonna see if I can look at this a little more. What I might end up doing is removing this, fixing here, and then installing this or something else in there just to add stability. Okay, even though I have replacements in hand, I'm going to hang on to these upper torque boxes, actually both of them. So they're both in good shape. Let's go over here back to the passenger side. There is some pitting here. I'm not going to worry too much about that. I did cut a hole here and here just because these flanges are not attached. I think it is attached down here, but what I'm going to do is clean up behind there and get as much as I can off of there, and then hammer it back flat against the rocker, and then just weld in the hole. Might not be the best weld just because I won't be able to clean back behind there perfectly, but it'll be better than nothing. So yeah, next step, I'm going to keep prepping and put just a misting of weld through on the weld landing surfaces, and then some rust converter in these hidden places, and gosh, what else? Yeah, and potentially some rust encapsulator. We'll see. Backside, I got everything, got weld through primer on the landing surfaces and normal primer on the rest. Yeah, I went ahead and, this might be tough to see, went ahead and welded up these flanges over here. On the other side, the flange had a weld, but it was separating, so I welded the top, and I attempted to weld down here. That is really trash. I had contamination, so I wasn't able to actually get good penetration there. It just kind of sat on top. We'll see. I might grind that and see if I can do a little better, but I think the contamination was from in between, so I don't know if I'll even be able to get in there and clean it out. So I've talked about the repairs and kind of the interesting artwork that's been done on this transition pan. My original plan, I mean, we've got a few compound curves on here, but my original plan was to just grind this back, repair some things, and just kind of move on. You can see on the inside the shock tower brace, or panel, I think that's what we're calling this. It's solid. I was just going to put some either rust converter or something up in there just to catch anything, but it's intact. The real damage is on the upper side. I'm not 100% sure what would cause this. Okay, well, the welds were caused by, you know, someone who thought they could MIG weld. Coming from me, that's saying something. But I don't know if I assume it's to fix cracks or holes that were drilled. Those might be holes to mount something, and they just kind of blobbed it together. And you can see there some of the spider work from the MIG welding. So I was just going to make this pretty and patch it up and move on. It's only after I got some of this primer on here that I noticed, I have no idea if you'll be able to see this in the video, but coming from, essentially that spot weld, which is not focusing. Okay, starting on that spot weld, there's a crack that runs, I'll call it a good 2 inches, 3 inches or so. And I'm feeling underneath, yeah, it's definitely a crack all the way through. Oh, and it looks like it might go higher. Sorry for the focus. Might go higher than that. I never noticed it underneath because of the undercoating, and it just never showed up until I couldn't see it until I put this primer on there. Yeah, I know, one thing or another. We should rename this car to Discovery, but I'm wondering if it makes sense to just get a new transition pan and section in. So I think that is it for today. I'm not gonna be able to get any more done probably this weekend. And I know it'll be a few weeks before I can get back at the project. So that's why I primed everything to protect it in the meantime. So next up is going to be tackling the front. I ironically still have the trans tunnel, what's left of it, the welds that I put in there. So that's going to be fun to undo the work I had done. And if you recall, or if you saw the other video, I actually did quite a bit of work on this firewall to get it to fit underneath the transmission tunnel. And that's all for naught. So now that there is no transmission tunnel, I could have just left it alone. Anyway, that is all for now. If you're still with me, thank you so much for watching. It's been quite a bit of work so far and a lot more to come, but we are making progress, and hopefully pretty soon this new floor will be in.